After 23 years in the military, Major Daniel Cross wanted one thing: quiet. He'd spent half his life listening to engines, gunfire, and orders shouted through static. So when he found a small fixer-upper at the bottom of a hill on the edge of Hollow Creek Estates, it felt like peace at last. The realtor had called it a transition lot, meaning forgotten, cheap, and barely within city jurisdiction. But that was fine by Daniel. The land had its own tax ID, its own zoning, and, most importantly, stood just outside the reach of the HOA that ruled everything uphill. He moved in that April, still limping from old injuries, still waking before dawn out of habit. At first, everything seemed fine. The mornings smelled like wet soil and pine. Then he noticed the soft spots. It started with a small dip near the fence, then another, then a third behind the shed. A few weeks later came the stench, a sweet, rotting odor that clung to the air like smoke. Daniel checked everything: septic, crawl space, drains. Nothing. Yet the smell grew worse. One afternoon, a man walking his golden retriever stopped at the gate. Trim, gray-haired, wearing a polo with a shiny badge clipped to it. Gerald Marks, HOA board member. Settling in? He asked. Trying to, Daniel said. You folks ever have drainage issues up there? Gerald smiled too. Tightly. Not on our end. That lot of yours used to be part of the association before it got carved out in a reassessment. Shame, really. Prime access point. Access point for what? Gerald just whistled for his dog. Be careful what you dig into, neighbor. Real fragile soil down here. Something in his tone made Daniel's instincts flare. That night, he started digging, not with a shovel, but with records. City maps showed something odd, a faint gray line curving across his property, unlabeled. When he called the Public Works office, a clerk confirmed the worst. That pipe's not on our books. Might be private. If they're routing something through your land without an easement, you'd better get a survey, sir. That was all Daniel needed to hear. At the next HOA meeting, he stood before a semicircle of board members in a room that smelled of cheap wine and entitlement. The president, Sandra Vaughn, sat at the center, sharp haircut, sharper smile. There's no record of any HOA infrastructure on your property, she said. You're overreacting. Probably just natural runoff. Daniel kept his voice steady. Ma'am, I spent 10 years in combat engineering. I know the difference between clay shift and pipe erosion. If your board has records of past drainage work near my lot line, I suggest you share them. Sandra folded her manicured hands. We'll take your concerns under advisement. They never did. 2 days later, Daniel's back gate was mysteriously unlocked. No footprints, no note. Just a faint scrape where something heavy had been rolled through. He installed trail cameras that night. The footage showed nothing for 2 days, until 2:13 a.m. on the third night. A man in gloves and a baseball cap appeared, knelt at one of the depressions, and planted a small orange flag. No city notice. No work crew. Just silence. Daniel printed the photo and marched into the HOA clubhouse mid-afternoon, dropping it on Sandra's table. Explain this. She barely glanced at it. Utility worker, probably. At 2 in the morning? Without reflective gear? If someone trespassed, call the police, she said, dismissing him with a smile. But the HOA has no reason to dig on land we don't govern. You do have a reason, Daniel said. Because there are pipes running from your homes through my yard. And they're leaking. For the first time, her face flickered. Mr. Cross, you're not a member. You have no standing here. If you wish to make formal claims, do so with the city. He nodded slowly. Don't worry. I will. He hired a private plumber, Calvin Price, a big man with a camo cap and the manners of a good soldier. Within an hour, Calvin found it. A 6-inch PVC drain buried 6 feet down, patched with duct tape and foam, buzzing with water pressure. That ain't residential, Calvin muttered. If it clogs, it'll blow. Maybe here. Maybe up there. That night, Daniel typed a cease and desist letter, reviewed by his old Army lawyer friend, Greg Mason. The message was clear. Any further encroachment or unpermitted use of my property will result in immediate legal action. No reply, just a violation notice taped to his fence. Unkempt lawn, visual nuisance. He smiled grimly. Retaliation confirmed. Daniel's next move was surgical. He documented every inch. Photos, timestamps, GPS coordinates. He hired Calvin again to trace the lines. 3 pipes. converged beneath his land, feeding from HOA homes uphill before curving toward the creek. A secret bypass system. He flagged the site, then spent a weekend digging full trenches. His yard looked like a war zone, but the truth was finally visible. A few days later, a battered red pickup pulled up. The driver, Dale Howard, former HOA contractor, limped toward him. "I laid those pipes," Dale said quietly. "Years ago, HOA didn't want to pay the city for stormwater hookup, called it a passive irrigation system. But I saw what they ran through it. Gray water, laundry, toilets later on. Told them it'd come back to bite them." He handed Daniel a folder. Hand-drawn diagrams, payment slips, a note reading exit flow, barrow lot, unregulated. "You didn't get this from me," Dale said, eyes heavy with guilt. Daniel nodded. "You just saved a neighborhood." Within a week, his yard was an evidence vault. He sent copies to his lawyer, the city, and the health department. Then, one afternoon, a city inspector arrived. Vanessa Cho, Department of Environmental Safety. She knelt at the trench, examined the pipe, and swore under her breath. "This is raw discharge, unpermitted and dangerous. We'll run tests. If this holds up, it's a criminal matter." It held up. By morning, HOA board members were standing at his fence, pretending not to panic. Sandra smiled stiffly. "We'd like to remind you, Mr. Cross, that visible hazards must conform to neighborhood standards, even outside association borders." "Then take it up with environmental safety," he said. "They're the ones who just tagged your line as a hazard." Her composure cracked. "You're creating hysteria." Daniel just turned away. Not hysteria, awareness. Then the monsoon came. The rain started just after midnight, pounding the roofs like mortar fire. Within minutes, water surged through the buried lines. Daniel ran outside, flashlight in hand. The pipes groaned, bulging under pressure. And then the crack came, not in his yard, but uphill. A geyser of black water exploded from the lawn of Sandra's perfect house. Sirens screamed. Floodlights flashed. By dawn, 3 homes were waist-deep in sewage, including Sandra's. She stood barefoot in the street, screaming at the firefighters. "Do you have any idea what this means for property values?" Daniel watched from across the road, soaked to the bone. "That's not property value," he murmured. "That's karma." The next morning, the news vans arrived. The lead reporter, April Diaz, strode up in rain boots, and a mic cameras rolled as Sandra tried to block them. "You can't film here. This is private property." April's tone was surgical. "Ma'am, this is public roadway. Would you like to comment on the illegal sewage infrastructure routed through Mr. Cross's property?" Sandra froze. I don't know what you're talking about." April raised an eyebrow. "City records suggest otherwise." Sandra turned, slipped in the mud, and fell, knee-deep in the very sludge she denied existed. The footage went viral that evening. The headline read, "HOA Sewage Scandal, When Power Flows Downhill." Within days, board members resigned. Brent, Nancy, the treasurer, all gone. Sandra vanished completely. The city fined the HOA $187,000 and classified the pipes as an environmental hazard. Greg helped Daniel and several homeowners file a civil suit. They settled in mediation, full remediation costs, soil restoration, public apology. Cleanup crews arrived by the truckload, tearing out the pipes like cancer from the ground. Within weeks, the air changed. For the first time, Hollow Creek smelled like rain again. Months later, a new HOA board formed. Their first letter wasn't a violation, it was a thank you. "Dear Mr. Cross, your persistence exposed a danger we failed to see. Because of your actions, new environmental audits are now required across the county. You've restored more than land. You've restored trust." Daniel folded the letter and set it on a shelf. He didn't need to attend their meetings. His work was already buried deep in the new foundation. By autumn, his yard had healed. Native grasses swayed where trenches once cut through the soil. Wildflowers returned. The creek ran clear. One afternoon, a little girl from next door, Emma, pink helmet, scooter in hand, stopped by the gate. "It's pretty now," she said. Daniel smiled. "It didn't used to be." "No," she whispered. "My mom said it was yucky before. Now it's the best yard on the street." He watched her ride off and felt something shift inside him, something lighter than victory. Peace. Earned, not granted. He sat on the wooden bench he'd built facing the creek. On its backrest, he'd carved a single phrase. Beneath the surface, truth still flows. And as the wind rustled through clean, living soil, Daniel Cross closed his eyes and finally let the quiet in.